Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome back.
Today is your day to
get out of the funk.
Get out of that funk. I'm Jena, Marcy, by the way.
And I'm Dr. Saira.
We always forget to introduce ourselves in the beginning.
We assume that you watch all our shows, so you already know who we are.
Don't worry.
In case you don't know who we are, I'm a transpersonal psychotherapist.
And I'm a happiness coach and a law of attraction coach and a couples therapist.
Yes. And together, we're going to solve all your problems.
Every single one.
Every one.
Don't even worry about it. It's done.
So we were talking this morning about how, many of us are on this positivity track and we want to be happy and we want to do good. And then something happens and it's easy to kind of get bumped off your road.
Yeah. So it seems really easy to be in a good mood when everything in life is going okay.
Mm-hmm.
Things are just kind of moving along and everything's fine. And then bam, you fight with someone and it's I've totally forgotten how to be positive.
Right.
And happy.
Right. Or you get some
I feel miserable.
You get some news from a family member about something that's going on and you're just oh.
Exactly.
Right.
So when things in your life are not going perfectly well, it can be really difficult. It can feel really difficult to find that happy place and to even think what's the point? To even remember what's the point of being happy? Because right now I feel miserable and that feels pretty good. When you're miserable, it's I'm justified.
I'm justified.
I have a right to be miserable.
Right. And you probably do.
Yeah.
Right? You probably do. And I think it's not about pretending away your emotion.
Right.
I don't think that's what we're trying to say. What we're saying is, of course, be where you are, but then also know that you have a choice to how long you stay there.
Right.
Right? Are you going to stay there in that unhappy, miserable place for a year, 5 years, or a couple hours?
And not to terrify you, but the longer you stay there, the worse things in your life are going to get.
Right. Because
you cannot put out a bunch of negative energy and have good things come to you. It is physically impossible.
Right. It's kind of like this, right? It's so we talked about ice cream. Remember right at the beginning?
Yeah.
In one of our early episodes, we talked about ice cream.
Yeah.
And so I often use this analogy with my clients that you are a particular flavor. And if you've been hiding out as a different flavor, then people who love your flavor have been missing you all your life.
Yeah.
So when people start actually coming into their own and realizing who they are and being authentic, they start finding that their friends change. Yes. Right? Because all of a sudden new people are attracted to you because new people see your real flavor, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm actually pistachio and I've been pretending to be vanilla, people who liked vanilla were all around, but I never felt like they really know me. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm pistachio, I have maybe less friends, but they're real quality interactions.
Yeah.
So what happens when you're down is that you're a different flavor. You're not your true self. You're not your happiest, best self. You're not that pistachio. And so experiences, opportunities, friendships that are going to be popping up for you, they don't see you. They just miss you. And you don't see them because you're busy looking down at your hard life instead of looking up at what's available as your next thing.
That's so true. Have you guys had the experience where you're in a good mood and you're in this amazing place and everything's working out and you just feel so good and you feel invincible?
Oh yeah, on top of the world.
Completely on top of the world. I get that way sometimes, and those days I'm I'm never going to be in a bad mood again. My life is going great. Everything's perfect.
Sadness, what's that?
Exactly.
Fear, that doesn't exist.
Yes.
Fear is just a state of mind.
Exactly. And it's so easy to just you're firing on all cylinders and everything's happening for you and you look amazing. And then there's some days when you wake up.
And it starts when you wake up, right?
It starts when you wake up.
And you think, oh, I don't want to wake up.
Yes.
Right?
And so now I have this process where in the morning I meditate for 15 minutes. This is a very new process. My whole life thought meditation was weird and I wasn't going to do it. And I'm just not that type of person. And then I tried it and it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. It's so fun and I feel really good after. So I meditate for 15 minutes. I listen to all these motivational things. But I can kind of tell when I'm fighting something. I can kind of tell when there's something that's just not quite going right. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not very focused on maintaining my good mood, I can very easily slip. And that's why we're talking about getting out of your funk, because that's been happening to me the last few days, right? And on those days, that person that is so invincible and on top of the world, she's a distant memory. I don't
I just feel like crap right now. Damn it. Nothing is easy. It's all just so hard.
Yes.
Okay, I have a friend. She's telling me this story. Okay, listen to this story, okay? Mm-hmm. So she's at a grocery store. And that particular day, if you shop at that store, you get points on a particular card. and you get like double or triple the points or something.
That's so exciting.
Right? So exciting.
Yeah.
But it's only like if you spend $100.
Mm-hmm.
So like for every $100 you get bonus points. But she's bought like $300 worth of stuff. So she's like, aha. There's no rule saying you can't have separate transactions.
Right.
So she gets to the front, she's like, okay. She explains to the cashier what she wants, but before she gets to the front, she's already like, oh, the cashier's going to give me a hard time.
Uh-huh.
And so the cashier, of course, gives her a hard time.
Right.
And like calls the manager, and then the manager gives her a hard time, and then she forgets something, and she has to go back, and it's like a big palaver, and she's like really, really worked up.
Mm-hmm.
Then she gets to her car, and you know those, we used to call them like McDonald's sandwich boxes, like that people put on top of their car for extra luggage. What are they called? Like a roof rack or something?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
McDonald's sandwich box. Remember the old Big Mac boxes that was... So she has it that was on top of her car. Right. It was like Big Mac boxes, right? So coming into the parking lot, she was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But she goes to leave the parking lot and she's like...
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The power of your mind.
Right? And she's like, I was like... The pipes were breaking, and she's like, I don't know what to do. I can't go forward. I can reverse, but how am I going to get out of this parking lot?
Oh my god.
And she's like, and I just sat there, and I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? All of a sudden, out of like nowhere, one of her good friends shows up in the parking lot. And then this other lady shows up who she knows, and this guy who she doesn't know. These 3 people showed up to help her.
That's amazing.
And like all together, they figured it out and got her out of the parking lot.
Yes. Wow.
Like out of nowhere.
But that is such a good example of how your negative thinking can just spiral and spiral and spiral. And it's also a great example of how well-being abounds. Like no matter how frustrated you feel and how in a bad mood you feel and how angry you feel at the world, there is a stream of well-being. Like our lives are supposed to be joyful. Mm-hmm. So there's always well-being coming to us. And when we can just take a small deep breath and a step back and just realize that everything's going to be okay, that's when things start to work out. But when we're in that zone where we're just like frustrated and we're looking for the negative in every situation, you're going to find it. And you're not going to be able to let the well-being in.
Right.
But it only takes a small step back. Like it really just takes a few deep breaths and remembering that, okay, things are not that bad.
You know, I love the metaphor of the river, right?
Yes.
So it's like there's this flowing river of well-being that we're flowing in. And when things feel good, they feel easy.
Yeah.
And we are messed up because we think when things are too easy, something's wrong.
Yeah, we think that like, oh, something's going to go wrong.
I'm not working hard enough. What's going on?
Yes.
But actually, when things are easy, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So you're flowing with the well-being river. And then sometimes you get stuck, right? And you feel like uncomfortable and you feel like unhappy and there's this tension and there's uncomfortable. And at those moments, when you say take a step back, it's like about stop. Just stop for a minute. And think, what would make me feel better right now? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's as simple as a few deep breaths or a call to a friend or like just stopping whatever you're doing. We've given ourselves so many rules of the things that we're supposed to be doing.
There's so many shoulds and should nots.
Oh my goodness.
Way too many.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Should I do this because then this will happen, right? Well, if you do this, you'll also be miserable for the next 5 years. Yeah. So maybe that's not the right thing to do. And if you can ask 3 different people and give you 3 different opinions on what you should do.
Exactly.
That's also like, I used to do
like
that.
Don't listen to other people.
Right. I used to do
nobody
that.
else
What
knows.
do you think I should do? What do you think I should do?
Yeah, I used to do that all the time.
You get like 10 different opinions and then you're still confused.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Nobody else knows.
No.
You have to just listen to yourself. So, and I think that a lot of people may not believe us when we say that life is supposed to be easy and fun because oftentimes your experience has shown you the opposite, right? It's shown you that, well, life is supposed to be hard because you work really hard and you have to get 18 degrees to get a good job and you have to do this and you have to do that. But we're kind of listening to what society is telling us and we're not actually looking at the examples of the world. So think about some of the people that you know who are maybe in the public eye who didn't go to college. They just kind of, like, their jobs are fun. Like actors. Think about actors. Their jobs are so freaking fun. Mm-hmm. They just like go on set and they like say a few lines and they laugh. Like imagine being on The Big Bang Theory. Can you imagine? That's my dream job.
So fun.
Yeah. And they get paid millions of dollars.
Or comedians. They just write a bunch of jokes.
Yes.
And then they make people laugh.
Yeah.
And they get paid for it.
And there are some people that are just doing what feels good and life is treating them really well. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason that you and I and Saira cannot be those people.
Right.
But it takes first the mental clarity to know that it's okay to have fun. Right. And that life is supposed to be joyful. Because when we're stuck in this belief that life has to be really hard, you're never going to get anywhere having fun.
No.
You have to change that belief first.
So my son and I are watching this Netflix thing called Life Story, which is about all these different animals, right? So the first episode was about birth and like the difficulties of birth, right? And how these different animals, if they can survive that first kind of very vulnerable period, then they go on to have a great time. So there's the first, okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, talk about a bad day. So there's these geese, right? And then they lay their eggs like on top of a cliff because that's the only way to keep their eggs safe from predators. So they lay their eggs on top of a cliff, but then when the babies hatch, they get to a point where they need to leave the cliff to go get food. But they can't fly yet. So these babies have to like jump off the cliff. Oh no. Now, their bodies are like soft and padded. So those who have the instinct to like take a long, far jump, they do okay. But those who are like kind of scared and nervous and like they just like hit, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, but what that's doing is nature, right? So yeah, and then that's what I was saying. Oh my gosh! And my husband reminded me. He's like, "This is nature, right? Those with the genes to like take that risk and take that leap will survive, and then they will have babies who do the same thing, and they will have." So out of the 5 chicks that jumped, 3 made it, 2 didn't make it, and so we had to have a conversation, me and my 7-year-old, about fairness, right? And I think sometimes we forget that we're also part of nature. And so what I think you and I are trying to do is bring out that gene in us that knows about that jump, that big, trusting jump into the abyss, knowing that you'll be okay when you land because you were built for it. Rather than like, oh, it's hard, it's struggle, no. These ones, the ones that survived, they just had fun. They just ran, and then they leaped, and then it was fun. Yeah. Rather than being like scared and then falling.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's in us. There's an instinct in us that tells us it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be easy. But we fight that instinct and we look around at all these examples of people who are not having fun and say, well, what about my mom? And what about my dad? And what about my cousins? And what about my friends? And what about my teachers? And everybody around me is struggling. So therefore that must be the way to do it. But is that the people you want to be like?
So those people that we're talking about that are just having a really good time and they're, they have these jobs that pay them really well and they're super fun and everything's going well, those are the ones that kind of knew instinctively that life is supposed to be fun and
just
they're just the ones that
just go for it.
Allow good things to happen to them. And the rest of us are having to learn it, right? So it's never too late. I mean, it's not too late. You can learn it right now.
You made it to here, right? And now it's about learning this skill set for the rest of your life.
And things happen really quickly. I forgot to tell you, actually. So we have a viewer that messages us a few times, every week when she sees the show. And so I've been giving her some advice about, law of attraction and how to just feel really good and how to go through your day with the dominant intent of feeling good and not letting the little realities of life get you down. And she reported back that over the last month, I think it was a month or a month and a half, things have been going really well for her. And she started just focusing on the good mood. But now she's noticing that things in her life are starting to catch up to her good mood.
Right.
So she's getting things for free. Things are just happening for her. She's feeling really good and the world is responding to her in that way. So you'd be surprised at how quickly things can turn around. It's not like you have to train your brain and then wait 8 years for something good to happen. It's
can be like that.
You train your brain and you start to notice the little evidence of it all around within a month, which is crazy. I mean, what else happens in a month? Nothing.
Speaking of babies and baby chicks, have you ever seen a really grumpy baby, just with that face?
I have.
And have you seen a really happy baby?
I have.
Who do you want to interact with?
Oh, the happy one.
Right. Same is true for adults.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're that grumpy adult that's just sitting there complaining and feeling bad, life is not going to interact with you the same way as if you're that joyful, hopeful, expectant in that other space.
Yes.
Right?
That's so true.
And so that's where you're missing opportunities if you spend too much time in the funk.
Yes. So now we actually have to talk about getting out of the funk.
Right.
Because we spent a lot of time talking about the benefits of not being in the funk, but how
let's give you some tools.
Get out of the
let's
funk?
give you some tools. And it's hard. We've been there.
Oh my gosh.
I've spent months in the funk.
I was there this morning. I came to Saira's house and I was like, I don't know, everything's falling apart. And she was like, just relax.
And so how do we get you out? What do we do?
Okay, so first I wanted to sulk for a bit. I was like, it is my God-given right to sulk and I'm going to do it. So for 5 or 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes maybe, I was sulking and I was explaining how everything's horrible and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life and blah, 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 etc. And I fought with my fiance and whatever. And then gosh, what happened? And then Saira just sort of, she reminded me that I don't need to have it all figured out right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't need to have it all figured out. And I know there was something specific that I was kind of dreading doing, and she reminded me that I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do, which is something that I forgot, right? Because I had been training myself for the last few months into just doing things that felt really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into this state of mind where I thought, I have to do this because it's expected of me. And if I don't do it, then I'm like a bad person or something, or I'm a failure. And she reminded me that the only thing that's a failure is not following your bliss, right? So you have to stay on that path.
And here, so as a mom, there are things that I have to do that I don't want to do, like laundry, for example, all this laundry. And so for a long time, I pushed against it and I resisted, you know, my laundry.
Yes.
Now, it's actually quite joyful for me to do laundry. Do you know why?
Why?
Because there's these inspirational like talks that I listen to, where I'm all squeezing them in like right before bed or like trying to squeeze them in the car.
Yeah.
Now I realize I could have like an hour of inspirational talks while I do laundry.
Yes.
And I feel so good, and I feel connected, and I
Yeah.
feel happy, and I have these interesting ideas coming up as I'm just like mindlessly folding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that I'm not doing that thing anymore. It's that I found a way to do it that actually brings me joy.
And you also, from what I remember, you also do it when it feels good to do
Right.
it. Like you don't do it, if you're in a funk and you really just feel like lying in bed for like the next 3 hours, don't force yourself to get up and do stuff that you hate doing. Just let yourself be okay with being where you're at.
Otherwise,
and eventually you're going to feel like, okay, now is the time to like clean my room or whatever.
And so my husband, who has like a full-time job, 9 to 5, he struggles with this, right? Because he wants to lie in bed, but it's a work day.
Yeah.
And so he pushes himself and pushes himself, and then 3 weeks of that and he gets sick.
Yeah.
And then he has to lie in bed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And so I'm starting to retrain myself and our family to say, what if we just listen to our bodies? What if we just like acknowledge what was going on and took the time? And it might just be, you know, that you're an hour late for work that day, but you're not sick in 3 weeks.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think we were meant to function at this high level of intensity that we've been working at as a society. I just don't think it's healthy for us. And I don't think it was meant to be this way. But the people who are doing what they love, they can work 20 hours and just be totally energized because they don't feel like it's work. Like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Some days. Some days it's freaking hard. But some days it's like I could work till like, 11, 12 at night doing stuff for my business, and it's like really, really energizing. And I go to sleep and I wake up the next day and I'm fine. Yeah. And then some days when I'm in a bad mood, like even 20 minutes of work feels like hard.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's just listening to your emotions and like allowing yourself to not feel like a bad person just because you're not doing all the things that you think you're supposed to do. That's the times when I feel the worst are the times when I feel like I alone am responsible for my future success. And I take it all upon myself. And I think if I don't do this thing properly, then I'm going to fail. If I don't figure out exactly what I want to do and start working on it right away, I'm going to fail. Those are the times when I feel horrible, and then I get out of it by telling myself that everything that's in my future is coming to me. And the only way to let it in is to be happy. So just relax. I don't have to do anything because I know that when I relax and when I feel joyful, I will eventually, in a period of maybe a couple of hours or a day, feel inspired to do something that's going to take me further. Right. But if I just try to work my way to it and I'm resentful, none of my actions are going to pay off.
Right. I'm getting the image of a spider web, right? So imagine what a spider web looks like. And imagine that we're the spider like on the edge of the web. The goal is to get to the center, but there's one straight line to the center, but probably most of us are going to go like in a pattern, right? We're going to go in a pattern. Sometimes we're going to go forward, sometimes we're going to go sideways, and then forward, and then a little bit sideways, and eventually you'll get to the destination, but not to put so much pressure that it has to happen fast and now.
Yes.
Right? And when I take that pressure off, it actually does happen fast.
Exactly.
But when I'm wanting it,
and you're noticing that it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because what you're focused on then is what's not there.
Right.
This is a really deep concept, and let's try to unpack it, okay? So when you focus on the thing, okay, for example, I want a good relationship with my brother. If I'm focused on not having a good relationship with my brother, I will continue to get more of that.
Yeah. So, yeah. And most of the time what we do is we focus on what we don't have, right? So if I'm thinking, I want to have a 6-pack, And then I'm thinking, crap, I don't have a six pack. And I'm like, well, there's flab here. This is covering up my potential six pack. This is all this flab. What's this doing? Then I'm just going to create more flab. But if I'm just thinking about me having a six pack, you know, maybe if this is a good experiment. Maybe I'll try it out. Eventually it'll come to me. Right? But it's thinking of what you do, what you want, and the lack of what you have. Wait, let's say that again.
So what's the right thing? Do we think of the lack, or do we think of what we want?
And how do you think of what you want in a way that makes you feel hopeful and excited
rather than thinking
so that's how you can tell. Because if you're thinking about the body that you want and you're feeling miserable that you don't have that body, then that's a clear indication that you're thinking of the lack of the body that you want. If you're thinking of the body that you want and you're feeling really good because you know that it's going to happen and you're hopeful that if you just stay in this good feeling place, everything's going to be fine and you're going to get that body and you're going to feel great. And even if you don't, who cares, because you have a great body right now. You know, like that's how you get into that space of being hopeful, and eventually it does happen. Right?
And you know, in the Law of Attraction, Abraham Hicks talks about that our worry is, so she's talking about somebody who's moving from one city to another, right? So she's living in one city, but she really, really, really wants to be living in another city. And so she's like, well, do I just make peace with the city I'm in? Because, you know, then
I'll be stuck here.
Then I'll be stuck here forever.
Then I'll settle.
Do I just make peace with the body that I'm in? Because then it'll never change, right? And that's the fear that we have.
That is the fear. But
actually, once you make peace with it, it's like, then you can move forward to transformation.
Yeah.
Right? Until you make peace with where you're at. Like, if I had nothing good to say about my body, maybe I could say, well, you know what? I have strong lungs and a heart that beats. And I have legs that walk me around. And I have hands that are, you know, able to type. Basic. Very basic. And then from there I might go on to say, oh, and I like my hairstyle. Oh, and I like this and I like that. But sometimes you have to start right at the basics. In the city that I live in, well, you know what? I've made some really cool friendships. The city that I live in right now, I really like this one, you know, coffee shop that I go to. And then once you start making peace with it, then there's room for movement. Until we make peace with where we're at now.
Because when you're pushing against something, you're actually bringing it towards you. So if you're constantly thinking about what you hate about the city that you live in, you're probably going to stay there for quite a while.
And that's what keeps you stuck in the funk, is pushing against what is.
Yeah.
So the first step out of the funk is accepting where you are. And that's what you said at the beginning of your conversation. You complained a little bit.
I complained,
You accepted where you were. And then you didn't do that for an hour. You did that for a few minutes, and then you moved to the next thing.
Exactly. And I allowed myself to move. So what I've become really good at in the last little while that I was never good at before and I never even thought of is asking for help. So whether it's to a friend or just to whatever you believe in, the universe or your inner spirit or God or whatever, but saying, okay, I know I'm not in a good place right now, but please show me how to get out of this into something better. Please show me the way. I'm willing to move through this.
You know, I did that the other day. So I had just come out of the gym, and it was like a really, really hard workout, and I felt like, you know, I've been going to the gym for so long, that shouldn't have been so hard in my mind. And then I was just sitting there feeling bad about myself. But I've just been to the gym, I should feel good about myself. But I was feeling bad, and I did that, and I said, I wish I could see a sign that, like, I'm on the right track here. And you won't believe what happened.
What?
All of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was a cloudy day, and, like, the sun shone in through my car window. Like, just shone right through the window, right onto my face.
That's awesome.
And, you know, if I was a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd have been like, and, like, just gone. I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I was like, okay, there's still light. There's still hope. There's, like, this is my sign that I'm on the right track.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And if you look in your life, you will find evidences of the path that you're on, that it's good. Like, you're on the right track. Don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. You just have to notice those evidences. You have to pay more attention to the stuff that's going right rather than the stuff that's going wrong. Because you can turn any day into a shitty day or an amazing day.
Right.
Like, that is your power.
Choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that. And I'll be the first to tell you, the last few days, it has not felt like that for me. Right? But when I look back, I noticed that maybe I have been in a bad mood, but it's been very short snippets of time, and I've moved out of it, and then moved a little bit back into it, and then moved out of it. Whereas before, it would have been an entire week of misery and horridness, and I would not have even gotten out of my bed probably, and I would have just been, you know, miserable to be around.
That grumpy baby.
The grumpy baby. So you'll notice as time goes on that you're getting better and better, and it is happening without very much effort.
And the commitment is just the one word that keeps coming up for both of us is alignment, right? So there's a part of you that's happy and connected and joyous all the time. All the time. That's your spiritual part, your soul, whatever you call it, your higher self. And if we can try through the day to kind of come, even just for a moment, into alignment with that and rest into it and know that, you know what, it's okay. Then you start reprogramming yourself. You start telling yourself that, oh, I could feel like that more often.
And that's the feeling, right? It's relief. So it's not, you're not reaching for joy. You're not always reaching for happiness. You're not reaching for bliss. You're reaching for relief.
Right.
So whatever thought gives you relief from the hell that you're putting your mind through is going to be the thought that you're going to want to hold on to. So I could have this morning kept thinking about the fight that I had with my fiance, or I could have kept thinking about, being late or whatever. But Saira helped to remind me that everything's okay. And all I have to do is just know that everything's going to be fine. And it's that thought that everything's going to be fine that provided the relief that let me step out of the funk that I was in and onto more solid ground.
Right.
And from there, you think of a thought that brings even more relief and more relief. And eventually you're climbing your way to joy and happiness and love and prosperity and bliss. And as you go along and you train yourself to do this, it happens more and more quickly.
Right. So yeah, think of relief, alignment. Those are kind of the primary principles of getting yourself out of a funk. And sometimes the relief can be something that you think is a bad idea or that you've been told is a bad idea. So for me, waking up in the morning, certain days, it's hard for me to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And just because I'm not a morning person, it's just tough. And so as I've learned this new thing about relief, I think these sheets feel so good on my skin. I love my bed. That's how I start. So now I'm having a positive thought rather than right? So I try to start to think about what's good about this particular moment. I know in 5 minutes I will have to get up. Yeah. But in this particular moment, my bed feels really good.
Right. So it's possible to get out of any funk that you're in. You just have to be willing to try.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Some people will discount this without even trying.
Oh, yeah.
We would challenge you to try it out for yourself, see how it works for you, and send us a comment. Send us a thought about how it worked and what some of your obstacles or challenges were. One of the big obstacles or challenges will be the people in your environment. Because if you're used to having people in your environment who agree with your dysfunction,
it's going to be hard for them to see you get out of it.
Yeah. And if you have people
they're going to think there's something wrong with you.
If you have people in your life who are also kind of stuck in the funk a lot of the time, then you moving out of the funk will be very threatening for them.
You're going to need to spend some time on your own.
Yeah.
Or with other friends.
With other friends who actually celebrate the potential and the joyous and the happy of life.
Yeah.
Right?
And take it from someone who has spent a lot of her life being moody as hell. This stuff works. It actually works.
And I was that person who was superficially happy, but never actually felt the contentment inside. And now it's I'm not all the time. I'm much more muted, but inside I just feel like everything's going to be okay. I just feel assured of that, And
that's the best feeling in the world.
It feels so good.
It takes all the pressure off. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be happy.
That's it.
That's it.
Because happy people do good things, generally speaking.
Yeah, good things happen to happy people.
Good things happen to happy people. They spread goodness in the world. Yeah. So that's your homework.
I'm excited for you to try this out.
Yes.
And please let us know how it goes.
Let us know. And if it was a big fat fail, let us know that too.
Yeah, let us know.
And then we can, and like Jena said, we're happy to respond to your questions and your emails so that you can kind of get this life that you're hoping to go for.
Exactly.
Check out our websites, jenaamarcy.com and talktosaira.com. We have lots of episodes for you to watch here on YouTube, and we also have stuff on Facebook. So we both have a Facebook page, Jena Marcy Law of Attraction Coach, and Dr. Saira is mine. So check us out, leave us a comment, subscribe, share this with people who are in a funk, please.
Yes.
And if you're receiving this, somebody loves you and they're letting you know. You can get out of your funk too.
We will see you next week.
Take
Bye.
care.